Are EVs really the future, and are they going to completely eliminate the traditional gas-powered vehicle? There is a lot to take in on this topic. Now, I did make a video a while back on why they're not the future, and honestly, that video did not age well at all. It was really based on a lot of battery fires that companies were having back then. Luckily, they've gotten a handle on that now, and we don't have to worry about that as much. But overall, there's a lot of factors to take into consideration when buying an EV. Now, you have to, one, consider your lifestyle, and you have to consider your finances, because the average EV costs $20,000 more than your traditional gas-powered vehicle. The average EV right now is $56,000. The average gas-powered vehicle is $36,000. Now, I understand there's tax credits and you don't have to put gas in it and things like that, but you still have to have that money up front. And that's, again, average. There are some a couple dollars cheaper, and there are some that are significantly more expensive. So the initial buying cost can be a deterrent for a lot of people. And before I go any farther, I am just going to say I am not an expert in this field at all. This is purely just a little bit of research, my personal opinion, and just giving you things to think about. I'm not trying to dismiss any one vehicle here. Now, the thing is, EVs have their place. There is definitely going to be a lot of them on the road in the coming years. And I understand that the government is trying to push a mandate for electric vehicles. And I think that is going to be a big factor, but I do not think that the gas-powered engine is going anywhere. There is still a need for a traditional gas-powered vehicle. I will get to reasons why throughout this video. But let's think about this. When you buy an EV, there's a lot of things that happen prior to the vehicle being made. One, you got to mine for lithium. That's not really good for the earth, let's be honest. And you're using a lot of gas-powered equipment to do that mining. So, I mean, there's arguments. Is it as much as when you get a gas-powered vehicle? Is it less? There's a lot of behind the scenes that go on. So if you think an EV is 100% pollution-free, you're kidding yourself. It's not. Is it less than a gas-powered? Yes and no. There's still debates on how you're going to dispose of an old lithium battery and things like that. I don't know the specifics. I'm not going to get into it. So, again, just something to think about. Now, question is, does an EV fit your lifestyle? That's another thing that's going to play into effect. Do you live in the middle of nowhere, or do you live in the city? If you live in the city and everything's in very close proximity, you're a couple minutes away from the grocery store, you're a couple minutes away from work, restaurants, anything that's entertainment, things like that, an EV might be perfect for you. But if you're on the other end of the spectrum, like myself, I drive 500 miles a week just to get to and from work Monday through Friday. That's not including any driving I have on the weekends or going on vacations or things like that. Then you got people that live out in the country who have to drive far distances just to get to a grocery store. The average range on an EV, and again, we're saying average, they can be higher, they can be lower. Average range is 194 miles. That's not a lot. The highest right now they're saying is about 400 miles, and the lowest is 84. So on average, we're going to round it and say 200 miles. I would have to charge my car every 2 days. Then you got to think about this. Are you in an area where you lose power frequently? I'm in an area where if the wind blows too hard, we lose power for a while. Now, if I have to charge that car overnight for work and our power goes out, I can't get to work the next day because my car's not charged. Unlike a gas-powered car, you can just drive to the gas station, get more gas, and go on your way. It's not a big deal. So the power grid is a big issue. I don't know that our power grid can handle every household in America charging a car. The electric company in my area, and I know in many other areas and states, especially in the summertime, will cut off people's air conditioners for several hours a day to try to save power because it's being drawn so much. I mean, we use a lot of power, and I don't think that our power grid can handle it. Now, clearly that's something they're going to work on and try to improve on if everyone's going to be buying EVs. They really have to take the power grid into consideration. Now, I want to revert back to the amount of driving you do too, because that will play a part on whether or not you should get an EV. Because if you drive a lot, like I mentioned, I drive 500 miles a week. Now, what happens when it comes to vacations? I drove from Pennsylvania to Florida last year. I had to fill up my tank twice on the way down there and made it there, of course, with kids screaming and pit stops and all that other stuff, in about 15 hours. Now, that's about a 1,000-mile trip. And if we take the average EV, that's sitting at about 200 miles of range, let's go a little on the higher side. Let's say 250. You would have to stop and charge your car 4 times. And hopefully you can find a quick charger. And then I don't know how long you're sitting there waiting for the car to charge up. I know some of them are saying a half hour, you can get 70% or 80 or whatever it is. But to get a full charge and keep going, you're going to be sitting there a while. You can't just stop at the gas station, pump the gas and you're in and out in 3 minutes. So that could also play a factor. Do you drive long distances? And then there's going to be other things that may determine whether or not your battery is going to drain faster. Is your air conditioning blasting? Is it cold outside? Is it hot outside? All these things are going to play a factor in battery life. And that brings me to my next point, and that is how long will the battery last in your EV? Now, they're saying the average battery for an EV will last 8 years or 100,000 miles. In today's world, 100,000 miles is not that much. I mean, there's cars going way past that. I have 262,000 miles on my Jeep right now. So to think about that, I would have had to replace that battery twice already. And the average cost to replace a battery, they said, could range anywhere from $5,500 all the way to $20,000, depending on the make and model that you have. Now, that is a large amount of money to be putting into a car once it hits 100,000 miles or 8 years. And let's say you want to go buy a used EV. So you buy a used EV with 60,000 miles on it. Now you got to worry that in 40,000 miles, you got to dump several $1,000s into it. Is the car still even worth $15,000? Now, I believe it was Hubie's Garage who bought a used Tesla, and he had to have the battery replaced, and he got a bill back for $22,000. That's a lot of money for a Tesla battery, for any EV battery for that matter. I mean, that's extraordinarily expensive. $22,000, I'll just go buy another car. Of course, then we also got to take into consider all the construction workers and the semi-truck drivers. I know the Tesla is working on an electric semi-truck, and it's supposed to have a 500-mile range. But then again, let's think about this too, that truck drivers drive a lot more than 500 miles, especially even in one day. So is that really going to be beneficial to them, where they can just stop and pump some more diesel into their semi and keep rolling, where now they're forced to stop for an hour or so at a time, and that could really deter their delivery time? Or we have construction workers who need pickup trucks to haul material, and if you have a pickup truck that's all electric, they're saying if you put any weight or towing behind it, it significantly decreases the battery life. So those two scenarios I don't think are a good fit for an EV. Personally, and again, all my opinion here, feel free to leave yours, I think EVs are strictly good for commuter cars. That's about it. If you live out in the sticks and you don't have a good power source, or you drive a lot and you would have to be charging your car every 2 days or every day or whatever it is, I don't think an EV is really going to fit your lifestyle well. But I've talked to a lot of people, those I know, some people I don't know, and I've got kind of a consensus about how others feel on the EV topic. And I've talked to people with EVs, and they say they're great vehicles, but they're not perfect. And I've got people that own gas vehicles that would say that, they'd consider buying an EV, but they would not give up their gas-powered vehicle because they trust it more. I've also talked to people who said that they would buy a 20-year-old gas-powered vehicle and continue to fix it before they ever buy an EV. So there's definitely a side to every story here. I think if you're going to be smart about this, there's still a lot that the manufacturers have to do to get people to buy EVs. One, the price tag has to come down. The average price of an EV is way too high. People just can't afford it. I also think the manufacturers have to find a way to increase the range of the full charge. It's just an average of 200 seems way too low. Right now, according to Kelley Blue Book, the longest range electric vehicles from 2021, number one spot is the Tesla Model S with a range of 373 miles. The Model X, 371 miles, and the Model 3, 353 miles. And again, these are the higher range vehicles. And then we got a handful of cars on the opposite end of the spectrum, like the Nissan Leaf, and they estimate the range on that to be only 150 miles. We have the Mini Cooper E, and its range is 114 miles. The Mazda MX-30, and its range is only 100 miles. So that's definitely an area where manufacturers are going to have to make some improvements. Now again, there's pros and cons to both sides of the argument. Gas-powered vehicles, electric vehicles, I mean, everyone's going to have their opinion. Clearly, I'm going to want yours down in the comments. I'm sure I'll probably get a lot of them. But if the EV is for you and it fits your lifestyle, then great, go buy one if you can afford it. Or maybe you're lucky enough to not have to worry about money, and then you can just go buy it and replace it, battery, or replace the car, or whatever you have to do when the time comes. But many of us, you know, those of us who paycheck to paycheck, can't afford that kind of thing. So a cheaper gas-powered vehicle is the way we would end up going. So anyway, I want your thoughts on everything we talked about. It's just some things to think about. Everything here is just purely opinions and thoughts to consider when it comes to EVs and gas vehicles. Do me a favor, drop a like on the video if you made it this far. I do greatly appreciate it. Hit that subscribe button on your way out. I'm Kevin, and I'll see you in the next upload.